Oh, do we have an amazing episode here on YouTube of Leading Our Own Way, part 4 with Warrick Giddey. Oh man, we're going to continue where we left off, where we're looking at how he had to navigate his early career challenges. We're also going to look at the impact of Andrew Gaze that I had on Australian basketball. Andrew Gaze, a good friend of one of my former guests, Mr. Wayne Peterson. If you missed that episode, please go and tune into that too, because it's very fascinating. But Andrew Gaze is a famous basketball player that went and actually won an NBA championship with the San Antonio Spurs. You'll find out more about that in Wayne's episode too. Also, Warrick goes into deep about building a championship team with Melbourne Tigers, their journey in the 90s and the early noughties, and Warrick Giddey was a part of that. We're going to dive into that, so tune in for part 4. Here we go with Warrick. Let's continue the chat. Don't forget to subscribe and keep leading your own way. Just before we go any further, just to put it on for the map for anyone who's listening regarding the Hawks, is it the same Hawks that I'm thinking that Jason Tatum's dad is currently the head coach for in the NBL?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So they're one of the foundation teams, and I think they're the only foundation team left in the NBL.
You mentioned not being on the same wavelength as your coach. What happened there, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, look, we just had a few run-ins. It was nothing to do with my training, or it was probably more off the court, and we like to get out and party a bit, and it was probably more the nightclub scene, and we didn't see eye to eye, and really it wasn't a matter of that I didn't respect his coaching ability. I actually thought he was a quite decent coach. I just didn't think he was as decent person as he was a coach. So we had there was just a few things. Nothing massively major, and I ended up asking for a release. I still had 1 more year to go on my contract, and we came to a mutual agreement, and they were fine with me leaving. And I was just lucky. One of our imports, I think that year 6 players left the club, including our captain Gordy McLeod, and I think Ray Borner, Jim Bateman, that also left, and both imports. So one of the imports, Gary Gaspard, came to Melbourne, and he was training with those guys, trying to get a job for the next year, and mentioned to Lindsay that there's this young bloke in Wollongong that you should have a look at. And they said, give us his number, and what's his name again? They had no idea who I was. And anyway, they rang me up and got me on a flight down for a week and said, come down and train with us. And so I came down and trained with them. Andrew was actually at Seton Hall at that stage. So this is in 1989, I think, or at the end of 88. So we would have just started his college. And anyway, Lindsay saw enough in me in that week and said, why don't you come on tour? We're about to go on an American tour, college tour. And I said, yep, no problem. And went on a tour, and he decided that when we come back here, we like what you do, and we'd love to sign you. And again, I got lucky. I really came down. There wasn't clubs that were ringing me up or knocking my door down to sign me. Even though I was an Australian under-21 player, I'd done nothing spectacular in 2 years. I was reasonable for the team without being on anyone else's radar. And Lindsay offered me a job, and I found an unbelievable role with a superstar side.
It was a great era for Melbourne basketball, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and at that year, Ray Gordon rejoined the club. He'd been there as a junior and been away for, I think, the last 2 years playing with the Coburn Giants. We recruited Dave Simmons on that American tour. Another bloke called Dave Colbert, they became the Double Ds. Andrew, the heart and the soul of the club. He came back, and it was funny because when I went away, Andrew wasn't on tour with us, obviously, because he was at Seton Hall. So I'd never really met him. I'd played against him for the 2 previous years, and I'd never actually met Andrew. So, and Andrew recalls and talking to his dad and said, what's this new guy like? And Lindsay said, he goes all right. He hustles, and, he rebounds, and, plays defense. And Drew was like, he plays defense. That's good. And last thing he said, and he doesn't shoot the ball a lot. He's a really good passer. And Drew said, right then I was sold. Drew said, he doesn't take many shots, and he passes, and he plays defense. And they were the 3 ticks in Drew's book. And it's quite funny. And Drew laughs about it at the time. And as I said, I was just so lucky to have him, and, the colour of players that Bradkey when he came, Dave Simmons, Dave Colbert, Leonard Copeland joined us, Robert Sibley, Ray Gordon, just to mention a few. And, I was not the greatest player. I was clearly a role player, and as I said, every building site needs a labourer, and really that's what I was on that building site. I was the labourer, and just trying to do the things that other players wouldn't do.
Yeah. So if you could match yourself with somebody in the NBA for, because I'm going to have a lot of English former teammates and coaches and people in America listening to this. So for anyone who doesn't follow Australian basketball, could you match yourself to like maybe a nitty gritty player in the NBA that you would maybe connect with and
Yeah,
would mimic,
I'd be a
like a
poor
Rodman
man's.
sort of guy?
I'd be a very poor man's Draymond Green. I mean, most of those guys that you may equate over there can shoot the ball pretty well as well. That was one
Yeah.
thing I didn't do great. I would equate it with, let's say, modern day NBL players like a Dylan Boucher to a degree. Loved his game. He was probably played with the New Zealand Breakers. Mika Vacona, two New Zealand players that I would say I was very similar to. NBA, most of those guys could score, but any defensive role player, maybe a very, very, very poor man's Dyson Daniels. I mean, he does so many other things besides defense. He handles the ball, he shoots the ball
Sure.
extremely well. Things that I probably didn't do. I wasn't a great ball handler and wasn't a great shooter. So my
You
role,
rebounded well.
yeah, rebounded and really just supported and passed the ball reasonably well. So,
You were Dennis Rodman then, it sounds like.
well, there you go. Well, Dennis Rodman here. Well, not so much modern, but yeah, maybe a very, very, very poor man's Dennis Rodman. That's probably without the rebounds, without the hairstyles, but
Uh,
with the same aggression.
you've got the hairstyles. I beg to differ on that one, actually. I'm going to pull a picture up. It's it's definitely the perfect time. You've definitely got the hairstyle. I was going to talk about your character in the NBA. Were you in the NBA? Were you known for a bit of a joker around the league?
No, not really. Well, it was just that one year, and obviously being back home over summer, and as I explained in that film, all my mates had long hair, and I went back and I think I worked 3 months on the beach there as a professional lifeguard, and I just never had time for a haircut. I was that busy training and going out with my mates and working, and when
Another
I came
picture.
back, it was actually quite long, so I had to wear a headband.
So that was the aftermath of this, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. Well, no, the spikes was the aftermath of the headband. So
Ah,
I came
sorry.
back and I had a red towel sitting around, so I just used to rip red strips off this old linen towel, and I'd have a couple of strips in my bag because when they got wet and dried, I'd try and tighten them around the back of my head and they would just snap off.
Yeah.
So I'd need a new one, and it was really bad towel that was 2 inches thick one wear and about a centimetre in another part of it. So it broke quite easily. So after a few games, I think I decided to get it cut, and Channel 10 was on to me and said, if you're going to get it cut, come into the studio and we'll give you some hairstyles. So I went in Channel 10 and said, yep, I'm going to get it cut. So they took me in, did a couple of hairstyles, and they left me with spikes, with the shot you see.
That's great.
So I said, yep, that looks pretty good. I'll go with that for a while. And I had my mate set up a training. So I went to training, had all the spikes. The boys had a good laugh. I said, all right, I'm going to go get it cut. So I had my good mate Speed, one of my best mates at the time, and he had his clippers. So we went into the change room at North Melbourne where we were training, and he cut it and left the 3 spikes left. So he cut all the other spikes off. And right when I went out, Lindsay Gage just happened to be arriving at training. So it looked like it was set up for the cameras. And Lindsay saw me and get out. And he was pretty good about it. He wasn't being angry. So I said, well, I better go back in and caught me mate before he packed up and said, you better take the next 3 off and bring me back into the 90s. And so he shaved all those off, and that was it. I went out and trained with the team. So I was back to number ones like I usually had from the haircuts.
That's
Mine was
hilarious.
the long hair.
Well, I've seen the video clip on YouTube, so when I make your promo video for this episode, I'm putting it on there.
Yeah, it was some wild cuts, and it was some wild times as well.
That's great. So, you've mentioned Andrew a couple of times, Andrew Gaze. Wayne did explain the importance and the impact on Australian basketball that he gave to the country, I suppose. What's your perspective on Andrew Gaze for anyone who is, my friends living in the UK and people living listening from outside of Australia? What did Andrew Gaze do for the game here?
Well, I'll start by giving you a bit of a funny story. So obviously playing with the Illawarra Hawks, and you hear about all this Andrew Gaze and the kid's 17 and he's scoring 30 points, and and you haven't got a lot of media. You've only really got the print media. There's no computers.
Mm.
We're talking in the middle of they're just coming in, so you haven't got the internet and things like that. So everyone in the other states, and it's a real Victoria versus New South Wales. So it's like, Andrew's only in the Australian side because his dad's the coach, and
Yeah.
he's not that good. Clearly, he's getting a run, and then you hear about the Victorian Basketball Association burning down. And it's like, yeah, Lindsay set that on fire because he wanted to get rid of it. It's an insurance job. And it's unbelievable the rumours you hear and what you think. And it just, that was the world we were in. We didn't know. And then once I got down here, you were like, oh, well, that's just bullshit. Andrew's an unbelievable player. He's in the Australian side because he's bloody damn good. And there's not a chance in the world Lindsay would have burnt down his stadium that he loves. And it was where his family lived. So you suddenly discover that, yeah, these rumours aren't true. This is a New South Wales Victoria thing. And obviously these days, that rumour would last, 1 minute before people would be able to knock it down with what we've got with technology. But and then you come down and not only do you find out how good of a player he is, and you find out how great of people they are, both Andrew and Lindsay and the family, and what he'd done for basketball, what he was currently doing, and then what he's since done. And you couldn't have met a more dedicated person than Lindsay. And when you talk about people developing their sport, and obviously we had a hand up from Ken Watson, who was Lindsay's mentor, but to take basketball where Lindsay took it, to have his son as the marquee and the best player in Australia and maybe the greatest ever player Australia's produced, was just amazing. And to be a part of that family and be a part of that team, and to witness it firsthand was just incredible for me. And I'm ever thankful for Lindsay for seeing something in me and bringing me to the Tigers, and found me a perfect role. The feeder position, obviously I would love to have been able to do a few more things, but our offense just suited me to a T. I knew where I was at. I knew my ability. I very rarely got ambition and ability mixed up. So hence that's why I didn't shoot a lot of 3-pointers, because I knew my limits. People do say I was 0 of 21 in 449 games. So I really shot one every couple of years, so to speak. And most
The
of them,
crowd went crazy when you did.
sorry.
I bet the crowd went crazy when you did.
Well, a lot of those were last second shots, last of the quarter or the half or the
Oh,
end of
yeah.
the game. I probably really only had maybe 10 legitimate shots. And by the end of my career, they were sort of giving me the ball saying, well, we need you to get a 3. And I had a couple that I thought were going in and unfortunately rimmed out. But I probably put up maybe 5 in the last year. So before that, I really hadn't shot many. But it was just one of those things. I wasn't a great shooter, bad technique as a junior, just never got comfortable with it, unfortunately. And as I said, I had to develop into a role player, and I was a so-called defensive specialist and passing. And what better job of passing to some of those players? Australia's greatest player, Andrew, passed it to Copeland, passed it to Bradkey, Simmons. Dave Colbert when he was there. I couldn't think of a better job of passing the ball to those superstars and trying to connect and help them be part of that team.
Yeah. No wonder Andrew Gaze was looking forward to playing with you, because he just wanted more points himself.
Well, that's it. He had someone who could pass and someone that wasn't going to take his shots, and I could also rebound the ball and get it back to him.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, I've got another picture here of you playing at the Tigers back in the day as well. Let's go through some of the achievements you and the club achieved during your time there during the 90s. Because you were there from, 89 to 2002, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, 89 when we all came there, the Tigers, I wouldn't say they were probably the whipping boys of the league for a number of years. They were reasonably competitive in most games, but they were generally down near the bottom of the ladder. They really didn't do a great job of recruiting. They probably just left it to their juniors because they had a junior club. A lot of their players would filter through the juniors into the seniors, and they were probably latecomers to the NBL. For years, Lindsay wanted to. The best league was the Victorian State League. Then when the NBL was formed, he had a bit of reluctance to go in that national league because it was probably an inferior competition to the state league, which the Melbourne Tigers were playing in.
Mm.
So when they finally came in, it was a number of years before they really got actively recruiting and got that level of professionalism where we're going to bring players in and pay them salaries and bring out elite imports. And 1989 may have been, they probably started a couple of years before that because they had outstanding imports, but they started to recruit some local talent. So a lot of us came back that year, and 1989 was the first year that they made the finals. And we went on and made the finals again in 1990, 91, then 92. We made it all the way through the grand final. And that was Mark Radke's first year. Sorry, that was his next year was his first year. It was Leonard Copeland's first year in 92, I think. And Robert Sibley that we recruited from Brisbane. So we made the grand final there. And we actually beaten Sydney in the semi-finals, and Sydney was probably the team to beat and looked like they were going to win the championship. And we knocked them off in game 3 in Sydney to go to the grand final. And fortunately or unfortunately, for us, unfortunately, that probably was our grand final, and we were that elated to be in the grand final that anything was going to be a bonus. And we ended up losing in 3 games to the South East Melbourne Magic, and that was in 92. So that was our first taste of grand final. And the next year we recruited Mark Radke and were able to get over the line and win our first ever championships in Perth.
Nice. Just to make it clear to, again, everybody else, I have this perspective because I've come from the UK. But when we say finals, here it's the finals is like the final stage, but the finals before the grand final is what we would call, I suppose, the semi-final.
Yes, yeah. Well, we'd have the semis. Obviously, I think it might have been a top 6 or top 8. So one
Yeah.
played 8 and 2 7, and you were playing the best of 3. So
Yes. So that's
in
still
the grand,
classed as the finals then.
so we were in the final series, and then obviously made the grand final.
Yeah. Which is the
Uh,
championship game,
yes.
of course.
So we played best of 3 against Perth, and
Yeah.
we played the first game in Melbourne. We won that. And Perth ended up on top of us on the comp that year. So the next 2 home games were in Perth, and
Yeah.
we lost game 2 and then went on to win game 3. And basically, it was my, I think, 5th or maybe 6th year in the league. I'd never won in Perth. None of the Melbourne Tiger players, none of our team had ever won in Perth
Wow.
for any of the teams they were playing for or for the Melbourne Tigers. So we're coming to Perth having to win 1 out of 2 games to win the grand final series. We've never won a game in Perth. We've never won a grand final, and we lose game 2. So we go into game 3, and basically everyone said, "Well, it's not going to happen. Write yours off." And Leonard Copeland just turned it on. One-man performance in the last quarter to almost single-handedly get us over the line. But
Enough is enough. We're taking it home, guys.
Yeah, well, Bradkey 24 points and 22 rebounds that game was
Wow.
just immense, and almost got lost in what Leonard Copeland did.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, well. And then you go to the finals again a few years later, don't you?
Yeah. We regularly were in the finals. Unfortunately, we didn't make the grand final again until 96.
Yeah.
And went through, and again, it was 1-1. We came to game 3 against the South East Melbourne Magic, and we lost. We lost by 30, might have been 33 points. It was embarrassing. We were just absolutely shattered we just were non-competitive in that game, and it wasn't like it's a close game all game, and are we going to win? We knew it was over not long after half time, I think, in that day, and that was shattering. But anyway, we got back on the bike in 97. There was a couple of little changes to the team, and I think they cut Dave Simmons at the end of 96, and that was a massive call because Dave was so great a mates with everyone. He'd been there since 89 when the Tigers really rose, and we've been in finals every year. So it was extremely disappointing to lose Dave Simmons, and the club brought in Jarvis Lang, who was a power forward, and you may remember him from he would do that on court.
Yeah.
Jarvis injured his knee, had degenerative knee injury, probably lasted, I can't remember, maybe half a dozen, 10 games before he couldn't play anymore and had to go home.
Oh.
Leonard Copeland ran into Marcus Timmins at the airport, and Marcus Timmins was an import with the Illawarra Hawks the year before. Same coach I had, and Marcus had a falling out with him because the coach was trying to control him.
Oh.
And Marcus was top 5 in most categories in the league. He was probably top 5 for points, top 5 for rebounds, top 5 for steals, top 5 for blocks. He might have been close to top 5 for assists. There was nothing this guy couldn't do it.
And he was trying to control him.
And Illawarra had cut him. And he was, well, we thought a superstar. Anyway, Leonard was good mates with him. And this is how laid back the Tigers were. Leonard come to training. Said, you wouldn't believe it, I've just run into Marcus at the airport. He's come to Melbourne to visit someone. Why don't we get him as our import?
Yeah.
And the boys all went, yeah, that's great, mate. This guy can play. We love him.
Yeah.
And Lindsay said, oh, you like Marcus, do you? We said, yeah, why don't we have a look at him? And anyway, the club signed him. We went on a 16-game winning streak not long after, and the 17th game we lost was game 2 of the grand final. And which put us 1-1. And we remember the media coming out and basically saying if we lost game 3, we would be Australian sport's greatest ever chokers.
Oh.
We just won 16 games. We lost 1 game. We lost game 2 of the grand final. The media was on us like you wouldn't believe. Wow. But anyway, fortunately, we came out and we won that game 3 in front of a packed-out house against the South East Melbourne Magic at Rod Laver Arena. And, it was an unbelievable feeling to win. Although it wasn't our home game, it was the Magic's home game. It was our home court as well as theirs.
Yeah.
And so to be able to do it in front of family and friends and everyone in Melbourne was just amazing. The first one was in Perth. We had to come home and celebrate this one. We were able to celebrate straight after the game with everyone there that was supporting us.
So you, in your time at Melbourne then, in the playing career side of things, you won 2 NBL championships.
Yeah. And we lost 2.
And you lost 2.
Yeah.
But you were in the finals altogether 7?
Right. No, I'd say every year, 89 to 2001. Probably.
Oh, wow. Oh, my Lord.
Last year, I think we missed the finals.
Yeah, wow.
If I remember that correctly.
So you're pretty much 90% from the line getting to the finals.
Yeah, unbelievable. Again, just when I tell kids, if you surround yourself with superstars, good things will happen. And that's what I did. And it was funny because a couple of teams tried to recruit me. Bruce Palmer at one time with the North Melbourne Giants, and some other clubs that always put out interest. And I always thought they read it wrong. They felt like they were going to bring me to another side, and I could get that side 20 points and 10 rebounds. But I had to let them know that wasn't my game. I wasn't going to be able to come to a team and be the man and be a scorer. And I said I was clearly a role player, and what I did best was if I had good players around me, I could maybe make them a little bit better and help out the team in that way in other areas. So I'm so grateful that I never took the money and the opportunity to go to another club because I always felt like my career would have ended abruptly.
Yeah.
I felt like I'd found my niche with the Tigers, a perfect role for my ability and for what I could do. And as I said, I didn't get ambition and ability mixed up too many times, and I think this was one of the times I got it right by staying with the Tigers.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, integrity that was really is.
It was hard. It was hard when you got an agent saying you can get more money and this and that, but I probably knew where my bread was buttered, and as I said, I knew my limitations, and I said, why would you lose? Why would you leave Australia's greatest centre in Brad Key, probably Australia's greatest point guard in Andrew Gaze, and one of the greatest shooters as an import in Leonard Copeland? I said, why would you go away from those 3 and think that you were going to have as much success without those 3 guys?
Yeah. Mindset, absolutely. Yeah. And those values are probably embedded from you, with all that hard work that you and your family did from such a young age, Were they with you the entire time, those guys from 89? Did they share that journey with you, or?
Well, Copeland, I think, came in 92. Yeah. Andrew Gaze obviously was, besides a couple of stints, your Seton Hall and the NBA.
Of course. Oh, yeah, of course.
Of course.
Brad Key 96, was it?
Yes, I think it might have been around 96, yeah. The year we lost it. But Brad Key, obviously, from 93. And Robert Sibley, that came down from Brisbane, was just there for 92 and 93.
Oh, 93.
And the rest of them were probably a couple in and out. There was a few changes down the bottom, but Ray Gordon was there for the whole duration of that time. So back in the 90s, we were able to keep that team together. And, we probably had a core group of 7 players that played nearly 10 years together.
Yeah, wow. And that's hard within itself, isn't it? We don't see that really modern day. I mean, we saw it, with Golden State Warriors well, with the three anyway. But yeah, you just don't see that very often these days,
No,
do
well,
you?
it's extremely hard. And the thing that killed that was professionalism.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
in the old days, and you think of AFL and maybe soccer clubs, it was you would play for the team, the junior club that you played for. You would support your local team. Yeah, if you lived in St Kilda, you would go for St Kilda. Carlton people went for Carlton. Collingwood went for Collingwood. Um, and you wanted to play there, but the professionalism, the pay rise, salary caps, um, the league going national, you know, in all sports. And you know, I tell people now, there's people in Perth that cheer for Collingwood or Carlton or
Mm,
you know Essendon, whoever it may you. It's no longer local league where you support your local team, and players aren't playing for the love of the game.
mm,
And as I said, back in those days, and you look at the Geelong Football Club more recently, where players sacrifice wages to get a championship and to get a premiership. Now, I always say players that were 15th, 16th on that list, on that pay scale, could have been number 6 or 7 at other clubs,
mm.
getting paid a lot more money, but they wouldn't have had the team success. So the beautiful thing about the 90s year is you could keep teams together, you could gel very well as a team. You might have had the best individuals, but as a team, you could play very well, and you could keep that group together. As I said, I always say professionalism, it's a great thing for the sport, but it killed the longevity of keeping teams together.
Agree.
No longer can teams stay for that duration, and that's probably one of the saddest things about sports going so professional.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's a whole different episode if we get into the root cause of why that happens with, parenting and delayed gratification and
Yeah,
things like that. Jordan didn't get his millions until he showed he could do what he did, but now
yeah,
people are stepping on the court with millions of dollars before they've even tied the laces, right?
yes.
Was money? What was the wages like for you guys around that time? I
Well,
assume were you paid all differently as well, though? Join us tomorrow to hear more from today's incredible guests and learn valuable insights to help you lead your own way. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you then.